I'm right here, Solo.
Bobafett, where?
I'm right here also.
Bobafett, where?
Or am I here?
Bobafett, where?
Or maybe I'm over here.
Bobafett, where?
Yo también está aquí.
What the fuck?
Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 67 of brettonfett, and last week the Target exclusive comic book Boba Fetts for TVC started arriving in stores, and I did manage to get my hands on these figures, so we will take a closer look at them. But before we get into the figures themselves, I want to break down the total chaos that is the Target exclusive pre-ordering and purchasing experience. Now, as most of you know, here in the US, Walmart and Target are the two major retailers that get exclusives from Hasbro, and both retailers have their major issues. Now, in my personal opinion with Walmart, it's more about their packing and shipping issues with figures just arriving completely damaged because they've either packed them in a mailer bag or they've packed them in a box that's too small. Now, that being said, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I did get the recent Clone Commander Cult figures. I ordered 3 of them, and they did actually put them in a box that was appropriately sized, and they arrived in fair condition. A couple of the cards were bent but not creased, and they had a bunch of edge wear, but for me, that was a total win. They weren't completely destroyed, so I was pretty much happy with that. So that was a pleasant surprise from Walmart. But in general, Walmart does a pretty good job with their pre-orders. You know, you generally will get your pre-order figures before they hit the stores. Sometimes they don't even hit the stores at all. That being said, Walmart did have a recent issue with their pre-orders for the new Black Series ARC Trooper 5s that has Black Series fans very irritated at the moment. But I think in general, their pre-orders go fairly smoothly. Now with Target, it is a total debacle seemingly every time. So let's take a look at my personal experience, and then I will break down all the issues I've seen with these recent releases. That's pretty typical with previous Target exclusives. All right, first off, before these new comic book Boba Fetts went on pre-order back in December 2022, the previous month in November, the pre-orders went underway for the vintage Kenner Colors Boba Fett. But then in April 2023, those Kenner Colors Boba Fett started randomly showing up in Targets, and this is a video I shot from my local Target where I was just shocked that they had him in stock, and so I was able to grab a couple, but at that time they still had not fulfilled the actual pre-orders, and to this day there is still no ETA on those original pre-orders for that Kenner Colors Fett, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And the chance to find these in the stores has seemingly come and gone, so we don't know if these pre-orders will ever be filled. Okay, so fast forward to last week on July 23rd, 2023, I was hearing some rumblings that the new comic book Boba Fetts were starting to show up in Targets. And so I went on to popfinder.com, that's popfinder with no E. If you're not familiar with that website, it's an awesome website where you can select a retailer and put in the particular stock code that retailer uses, and it'll tell you where that item is in stock in your area. And to my surprise, it was showing stock on one or both of those new Fetts in nearly every Target in my area. Now, I live in the area of Houston, Texas, and so I started off on a journey to see if I could get my hands on the Fetts. And my very first stop went really well. They didn't have the Fetts on the shelves, but a very nice staff member working the toy department was able to go in the back and find me 2 of the vintage comic art Fetts, which was awesome. Unfortunately, she was not able to locate the comic art edition Fett despite them showing that they had a case in the back. but it was only my first stop, and I was just so happy to at least get my hands on these, so I did not care and proceeded to the front to check out. Now, when they were scanned at the register, it did bring up an error code that basically said it wasn't a store item to be sold, and this apparently was because Target register locked them even though they had them in stock. But I was able to show the cashier the DPCI number, which is just Target's SKU number, and she put that number in manually and the item correctly popped up, and so she was able to sell me those 2 figures. And so I was happily on my way to the next Target to try and find the comic art edition Fetts. I wanted 2 figures, one to keep carded, one loose. And when I got to the next Target that showed stock for that item, the employee working the toy section there refused to go in the back and get me the items because she said she can't sell them to me because they are street dated. And so she wasn't willing to help me, even though I told her I was able to purchase one of the figures at a previous Target. She did not seem to care, and so I was on my way again. Now, when I got to the third Target, they actually had the comic art edition Fetts hanging on the pegs, but unfortunately, every single figure they had available hanging on the pegs had crushed bubbles. And so I just went ahead and bought one to keep as an opener, was able to correctly pay for it at the register just like I did at the previous store by giving the cashier the DPCI number, and I was on my way to find a nice carded version of the comic art edition Fett. Unfortunately, that's where any success I had at that point ended, because I went to 3 more Targets that showed stock, and every single one of those, the staff refused to go in the back and get me the figures because of the street dating. And so that's where my adventure ended. And so with that, I just want to break down all of the issues with this whole Target exclusive figure experience. And the main issue number 1, is the pre-orders. First and foremost, despite pre-ordering these figures many months in advance, Target continues to stock the items at their stores before filling the orders to those that pre-ordered them. And on top of that, consistently failed to provide us any kind of estimated time of arrival for when our pre-orders will be filled. Now, something interesting that happened the other day is the comic art edition Fett on the website suddenly changed from no ETA to a back order date of July 27th through August 11th. And then on our orders, it posted the request to approve the delay. And if you don't log in and happen to see on your order them asking that request and don't respond to it, they actually cancel your order. So everyone was putting out the word through Instagram and Facebook to go check your orders and approve the delay, or else your order is going to get canceled. Pretty ridiculous. Issue number 2, street dating and the early stocking of the items. So the street dating just doesn't make any sense. It's like they're running a promotion and it can only go on sale on a certain date, but they're not promoting it, and it doesn't make any sense. And then to make things worse, they'll get these items in for stock ahead of the street dating, and some Targets will even put them on the shelves. And so it just causes this whole confusion, and they don't ring up properly. And so, the stock can't be kept up accurately, and you get situations where people are buying up entire cases ahead of other collectors, when other collectors may go to a Target that won't sell the item. And then just the process of purchasing it, if people didn't know to put the DPCI in, you may have some cashiers ring it up as unidentified. We know this is going on. And so when they do that, it doesn't reflect the stock properly. And half the time, these cashiers don't even ask the customer how much the item costs. They just make up a price. And that's not good either in the long run for the line. And speaking of price, the third issue we've been seeing is inconsistent pricing. Now, these figures were advertised for the pre-order at the price of $22.99. However, the common price in the stores seems to be $20.99. And yet, some people have seen these on the store shelves for $23.99, and at least one person even encountered it at $29.49. What is going on?
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
And the fourth and final issue I've observed with all this is confused staff or inconsistent customer service with all of this. When these exclusive figures finally arrive at the stores, whether or not you get that figure in your hand completely depends on what Target employee you encounter. Some look it up and say, oh yeah, we've got in the back, let me go grab it. Others look it up and then have a confused look on their face and say, well, it's showing in the back, but I don't think I'll be able to find it, or I don't know how I'm going to find it. And then if it's before the street date, you'll have a lot of employees just straight up tell you, yes, we have it in the back, but I'm not going to get it for you because I cannot sell it to you until such and such date. So you're going to have to come back on that day. But then of course the issue with that is a different collector may come in the next day and encounter a different Target employee at the same store who doesn't know any better, and that person goes straight to the back and grabs the item and sells it to him, and so the other collector that was there first misses out. And then if you do get a figure in hand from the back and go up to the front, the cashiers don't seem to ever understand what to do. I don't think any of them know what street dating is, and so they just do whatever they can to ring it up. Now, to be clear, I do not blame the employees for this issue. This is clearly a management issue. Stuff is not being explained to them properly, probably because upper management themselves are confused about what's going on. But anyways, all these issues I've observed just leads to one big cluster. It is just a total mess, and really Target needs to do something about it. I know this has been brought to Hasbro's attention, but it just seems like they don't know what they can do about it. They could just pass on the frustrations to Target, but nothing ever seems to change, and I'm not sure anything ever will. Alright, enough about all that. Let's get to the fun stuff and take a look at these figures. And we're going to start with the card backs for both of them, beginning with the Boba Fett vintage comic art. I love this card back. They took the image from his first appearance in a comic book, which I believe was Star Wars number 42. And you got Dengar and Bosk in the background there. Man, what a great image. And I love where it says, and now the bounty hunters. And take a look at the figure compared to the source material, how great of a job they did matching those. And then this is VC 277. There's a look at the figures on the back. And notice there's not a comic art edition Boba Fett shown on those panels, which is pretty strange because it's got the other two Target exclusives. But anyways, this is an awesome card back. Really like this one. Next up is Boba Fett comic art edition. And this is not exactly taken from a comic book per se. I think this is more of a graphic novel, and it's called Boba Fett Death, Lies, and Treachery. And the first thing that stands out to me on this card back is a use of that font, which is taken directly from the novel. And I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of this artwork used for this card back. No disrespect to the artist, but it's just not my favorite rendering of Fett. I just think he looks a little bit odd there. But some pretty cool alternative colors with the greens and purples. It is VC 278. And there on this version, you see all three Target exclusive Fett. So it's really strange to me that the other Fett did not have this one on the back. And flipping back to the front, you can see the bubble is damaged on this one. So I will be opening it and hoping to get a nice carded version in the near future. And here's a look at the card backs for all three Target exclusive Boba Fetts from this year all together. Very cool card backs, although I have to admit the comic art edition card back is by far my least favorite of the three. Alright, so now we'll take a close-up look at the two new figures loose, starting with the vintage comic art Boba Fett, looking very cool. And here are the accessories that come with them. There is the jetpack, very muted tones. It's a very light gray and a slightly off-white there. And here is his EE3 rifle in purple to match the art from the comic book. Now I noticed this is actually a different mold from the original EE3 rifle that came with the Return of the Jedi Fett and was reused for the Droids Fett and the Kenner Colors Fett. So it's interesting they went with a different mold this time for this figure. And he also comes with a pistol, which is nice because the other Fetts from this mold did not come with a sidearm pistol. So I thought this was a nice touch, and it's in another muted color, kind of matches the jetpack. Let's take a closer look at the figure itself, and there are just very vibrant colors used here. This looks like a comic book character come to life. in toy form. And of course, the best thing about this figure, in my opinion, is the helmet. I mean, look at that. Look how great of a job they did matching the comic book art with that helmet. It's by far my favorite thing about the paint apps on this figure. But I just love the colors. You know, when I first saw them, I thought, it's a little too Christmassy looking, but I really don't think that anymore. I think they just did a great job matching the art from the source material. And I do like the way those reds pop and that little bit of purple thrown in there. I love the red of the knee pads. It goes all the way around the back of his legs. And I love this purple stripe on the shoes. They really nailed every color detail from the comic art. And I love the yellow Wookiee braids there. It looks really cool. And by the way, does anyone know what the holes in the cape are for? They've done this with the other Fetts that have cloth goods capes. And I'm sure they serve a purpose probably for positioning the cape, but I just don't know what it is exactly. So let me know in the comments if you know what that's for. All right, so I've added his rifle and his jetpack so you can see what those look like on him. And yeah, it's just a very cool figure. It's a lot better in person than I thought it would be. Mainly because of the really cool paint apps. I think they did a great job on this one. So let's get him in some poses. Next up is the Comic Art Edition Boba Fett, and you can see this is a different paint style for this guy. But let's look at the accessories. I really like this jetpack. It's got that green rocket with the combination of that purple and baby blue colors. And here again is the EE3 rifle, same mold as the vintage comic art Fett, and again a different mold from the previous Boba Fett's used. And this one is all in purple, looking pretty cool. And he's got a sidearm blaster here, which is in the same purple as the rifle. But very cool to have that extra accessory. All right, so let's take a close-up view of the figure itself. Definitely a different style of paint job they're going for here. You can see they're going for sort of a shadowing effect with the purple on the left side there. And I love the use of the same purple for the insignia. It's very cool looking. I want to compare it to the actual source material, and you can see it's actually a slightly different green. The art on the card back is kind of a lime green, and so I think they missed the exact tone on this one, and so that's a little bit disappointing, but it still looks really good. I think everything else they went with the purples, they did a pretty good job matching. But it's not that exact match like you saw with the vintage comic art Fett, but still a very cool paint job. All right, so let's get his rifle and jetpack on. Here we go, looking pretty cool. And I really love how the colors of his jetpack and his rifle make everything kind of flow together between his accessories and his suit. So pretty cool looking paint job for this Fett. Let's get him in some poses. And here's all three of this year's Target exclusive Boba Fett's together, looking very cool. I think these all complement each other very well. They're all the same mold, of course, but the paint jobs are all very different themes working here, and they look pretty cool together. And here's a look at all 5 Boba Fett's using that same Return of the Jedi Boba Fett mold. It's a great mold. We knew they weren't just going to use it for one figure, and I think Hasbro's done a great job getting the most out of it with these repaints. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments if you've picked up the new TVC comic book Boba Fett's, or if you've still got them on pre-order with Target and hoping for the best, or if you're passing on them completely. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram and on Twitter. Take care, and we'll see you next time.